Hello, everyone. I have a revealing scripture from Proverbs 14:30 to share with you today. It tells you the hidden truth behind sickness. This is a very personal issue to me. Let me explain why. When I was going through my tribulations with sickness, I tuned to everybody's favorite three-letter channel, Christian channel. I saw an older gentleman. His name is not important. It was in a talk show setting. And this elderly man said, "I've never been sick my entire life." And his guest sitting next to him turned to him and said, you never even had a cold? And then he stood up straight, kind of emitting a confidence, almost like prideful, and said, "No, I've never been sick in my entire life because I walk in the Spirit. So I have supernatural health." That would have been a great message if it wasn't laced with condemnation. He was insinuating that he's healthy because he walks in the Spirit. If you're not healthy, then you don't walk in the Spirit like this perfect person. I heard messages like that time and time again when I was going through my issues. It's very tough when you're sick and you hear those kind of condemning messages. Because when you're sick, obviously you're already at the ground floor. And when you get condemnation on top of sickness, it puts you beneath the ground floor. It's a terrible way to treat somebody. But it's been going on since the beginning. When the disciples walked with Jesus, they had the same spirit. And these were the disciples that walked with Jesus. They saw a blind man. And they said, "Jesus, who sinned?" Not if he sinned. They assumed that he sinned because they said, "Who sinned? Was it this man or his parents that he might be born blind?" That's the condemnation spirit. They're assuming that he had to do something wrong in order to be blind. That's the same spirit that's going on right now. In fact, it's going on in the church. In fact, the worst offenders are people in the church like you and me. If you don't think you have that spirit, let me remind you what the general consensus was when COVID came out and when AIDS happened. When AIDS was new, everybody said, "That's God's judgment on those sinful gay people." And I was part of that. I was part of that crowd too. I was condemning them too. And then when COVID came out, it was the same idea. It's God's judgment on America for all the abortions, for all the school shootings, for all the wrong things that are going on in America. God is judging America. That's why COVID is happening. So it's always that condemning spirit. Notice it's the opposite of what Scripture says. Scripture says, that righteousness is available for everybody. So let's analyze what Scripture says about what the truth is sickness. Is it really you? Is it your sin that's causing your sickness? Are you to blame? Well, let's analyze what this says. It comes from Proverbs, which is known for being the book of wisdom. So let's see what wisdom the Scripture imparts to us. Proverbs 14:30 says this about sickness. A heart at peace gives life to the body, but envy rots the bones. Now, what could that possibly mean? Well, just so you know, heart at peace is the same thing as a mind. Heart and mind are interchangeable in the Bible. So they're saying that A mind at peace brings life to the body. So therefore, the opposite is also true. A body full of envy or stress causes death and hurts the body. It says it rots the bones. So we have a sense of decay. When you have envy in your heart. So they're using envy as a metaphor for a mind in a state of unrest. We all know what that's really called. Nowadays, it's called being stressed out. So what this is actually saying, that stress is causing sickness. It starts in your head, it manifests in the body. And psychologists and doctors have been saying this for the longest time. That there's a link between being stressed and chronic illnesses. So in ministry school, I learned to dissect words in hermeneutics to find out their meaning. So let's find out the meaning of what sickness is. There's a different word that describes sickness in the Bible. It's called disease. Or rather than getting a Greek lexicon, we can just sometimes say a word. And if we listen to what we say, it'll give you its own definition of the word. So let's break down what disease is. Just say the word and listen to what you just said. You just gave yourself the definition of sickness. Disease consists of two old French words, dis and aise. When translated, it simply means uneasy. That reveals something pretty interesting. That sickness is not purely physical, it's mental. So they're saying uneasy, the opposite of being at ease, in the word is sickness, dis-ease. That perfectly aligns with the scripture. A heart at peace brings life to the body, but a mind in a state of unrest or dis-ease is sickness. So the truth about sickness is there. It's been there since everybody's known about stress. It's kind of hard to avoid stress nowadays because the news is stressful, your job is stressful, life is just stressful. So that's the cause of disease, according to the word. But there's a remedy. Note the scripture that says, "Be still and know that I am God." What is that scripture telling us? Is it telling us to be motionless? Absolutely not. It's telling us to still the most busy thing that we have in our body, our mind. So if you be still and know that He is God, you are resting your mind. That's what brings healing, peace. How do you find peace in this type of society when even the news is stressful? Be still and know that He is God. But before I close tonight, I just want to go over a scenario that's causing a lot of stress in our lives. I'll use this illustration. We all read the instruction manuals for our iPhone, for all of our devices. And if it says don't get it wet, we don't get it wet. If it says don't leave in the sunlight, we're very careful about not putting it in the sunlight because it's very expensive. But when it comes to this device, we hardly ever read the instruction manual. Because you know what the instruction manual says? It says don't put burdens in your body. Don't carry them. That will break down your device. So we're ignoring the instruction manual. It's kind of like putting metal in a microwave. If you ever ignored the instructions and put metal in a microwave like I did when I was 9, you start seeing sparks fly. And that's what happened to me. You might think that my stroke could have been caused from maybe a bad diet or an unhealthy lifestyle. But according to what we just read, let me tell you what my stroke came from. It was a time in my life when my father just passed away, and I was suffering kidney failure, and I lost my job. It moved to the Philippines. So that was stress upon stress. I went to work one day, and somebody said, "Wayne, what's wrong with your face?" I said, "Nothing. I was born this way. What are you talking about? My wife thinks I'm handsome. My mom does too." And they said, "No, Wayne, your face is moving." And I felt what they were talking about. My face was twitching. So like sparks in a microwave, my body was telling me, system overload, system overload. Because even at my job was stressful, because I was the manager of over 40 people. So on top of my dad passing away, which I found out at work, by the way, I got a call for a code blue. I didn't even know what that meant. It sounded like a very nice, calm color. So I did not know until one of my employees, who was a nurse, told me what it meant. And then I went home in tears. He said, "This is what caused my stroke. Not one thing, just adding on stress upon stress upon stress." And that's what causes sickness. Dis-ease, being uneasy. The word tells you itself. I just want to mention for people out there that are either going through sickness or know somebody who's suffering sickness, be careful, don't condemn. We all do it. Because you have to understand, when somebody's sick, they're already at the lowest point. And when they hear condemnation, saying that you're causing your sickness because you are not holy enough, that just puts them even further down, puts more stress on top of them. It essentially makes them more sick. So I still want to say to everybody, just to be still. Still the noise. Turn off the TV for a while. Calm your mind. Relax. So you can be healed. Because it says in that same verse that I read to you, a heart at peace brings what to the body? Brings life to the body. So the key is to be still and know that He is God. I remember when I was going through all my problems, I was so busy trying to put myself on the throne, trying to figure out how I was going to deal with my dad's death and my employees and get money since my job moved away. I was so busy trying to put myself on the throne, I could not be still. I could barely rest. And then I go to work, and then my face is twitching, and everybody notices. So that's what happens when you put metal in a microwave. Sparks start flying. So Jesus told us, don't put burdens in your body. They don't belong there, like metal in a microwave. He said, I'll carry them for you. But we constantly do that, especially as men. We think that's our responsibility to carry these burdens. Jesus said, no, it's not your responsibility. Give them to me. Because you will explode just like a microwave with metal. Are you going through stress today? You are experiencing sickness even though you don't know it. It starts in the mind, then it manifests into the body. It even happened with Jesus. Before you gasp and think, did he just say Jesus was sick? Jesus suffered agony. And what happened after he suffered agony? He cried tears of blood. And what would make somebody cry tears of blood? It's a common disease that I have. It's called hypertension. Because it's been discovered that tears of blood are caused by stress that causes the blood vessels in your eyes to burst. So first Jesus felt agony, and then it manifested into his body in the form of tears of blood. And that's a disease. There's actually a name for that disease. I just don't know what it is. It's a documented disease that's only been discovered on people that experience very high levels of pressure and anxiety. So disease, even Jesus suffered disease when he was overwhelmed. He literally had the burdens of the world on his shoulders. And it was too much even for him. We consume so much stress daily. Now finally, science and medical community has finally caught up with the Bible. They've been saying for a long time that there's a link between a stressful lifestyle, and chronic illness. Well, congratulations, community. You finally caught up with the Bible. So I want to just wish people peace, shalom. Because a mind at peace brings life to the body. When Jesus said, be still and know that I'm God, he's talking about the busiest thing in your body, your mind. Calm it, because he's the manufacturer. He knows what makes us tick. He's the one that made us. He says, you're not built to carry burdens. So if you do it, you will break down. But nobody listens to him. It's like a 9-year-old using a microwave for the first time. That's what I did. I didn't read the instructions. I was just so anxious to use it. And when his sparks started flying, I called my dad. I said, Dad, come down. The microwave is about to explode. And he just looked at me calmly and took the plate out of the microwave and looked at it and said, Wayne, this is our fine china. I said, are you mad because I'm using china? So we use it every day for everything. He said, no. Our china is made of silver and gold. He said it just like that. Then he just stared at me like, do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? And I just stared at him like, what are you trying to tell me? And then he finally put me out of my misery. He said, silver and gold are precious metals. And you're not supposed to put metal in a microwave, Wayne. He said, you really should start reading the instructions before you use expensive things like this because you could break it. I got lectured that day. The same way a 9-year-old mind was working, that's the same way we're doing with our own bodies. We're not paying attention to what the word says. And we keep on putting burdens in us. And then we wonder why sparks are flying. Peace be unto you. And I'll see you next time.